Hi, welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager. We have a special guest host this week on the show, and it is Kara Null.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome, Kara. Kara's a longtime friend of the show, amazing baker, sports fan. What else can we say about you, Kara?
I laugh when people fall down.
She laughs when people fall down. She's into self-mockery.
Yeah.
And she has great taste in films for the most part, especially when she agrees with me.
Yeah.
So we're sorry Brian Michael could not be with us this week. He is celebrating Kobe Bryant's Oscar win at a party. So congratulations to Mr. Bryant on that. I'm sure Brian's very excited for him. So let's go right away into our first movie this week, which you saw a clip for at the top of the show, which was A Wrinkle in Time. After their father disappears, a teenage girl and her brother go on an adventure through the universe to find him. Of course, this is from the popular children's book, and this is the adaptation by Ava DuVernay, who I think I might be butchering her last name. Is it Ava DuVernay?
I think that's right.
Okay, who previously directed Selma and 13. So very different kinds of movies, not something to make you think she's ready for a huge Disney. This is a Disney movie, and it very much feels like a Disney movie, a huge Disney kind of adventure spectacle. It's got Oprah Winfrey, Reese Witherspoon, and Mindy Kaling as Mrs. Which, What's It, and Who. Of course, the children, who I really particularly liked, Storm Reed as Meg in the lead role, and then the parents, the father is played by Chris Pine, is one of the bigger stars in the movie. But this movie is really about the children's adventure and the special effects and the background. And the thing was, it seemed like all the right elements are there in a way, and I haven't read this book since I was a kid, so I can't speak to how accurate it might be to the novel, so I'm not even going to get into that. I remember loving the book when I was a kid, but since, that's been a little while, I'm not sure how accurate it is, so I'm not even going to judge based on that. But just as a movie, I just felt like there were several parts where I felt like it should be more magical than it was, and I felt like I should be transported the way it was when I first saw like A Never-Ending Story. And I'm not sure if it's just because I'm not a kid anymore, but I don't think it's just that, because I remember the first time I saw Pan's Labyrinth, for instance, and I just felt like I was totally transported and immersed in this world, and I never quite felt that way with this one. There was something about the look of the special effects for me and the way it all came together where I never quite felt like I was really on a hero's journey the way I felt like you were supposed to.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to get your take on it.
I hated it.
Oh, you hated it?
Yeah,
so
I hated
you were
it.
being so generous because you were like smiling as I was.
Yeah. No, I was glad that we were kind of on the same wavelength.
I was being maybe a little bit more generous with my review because I was trying to see some good in it. I didn't think it was horrible, but you obviously did.
Yeah, and the problem is I really like Ava DuVernay. I mean, I see her with a big future. Selma, I think you liked it more than I did, but the story, of course, was very moving and a very important piece of history. I loved 13.
Yeah.
This, though, I read the book as a kid, too. And
maybe you remember it better than me?
Well, I don't necessarily remember all the details, but I remember the feeling and kind of the overarching theme, and I felt like that was totally missed, and it felt like it was like a piece of vanity work for, I don't know if it was the three actors, Reese Witherspoon, Oprah, and
Mindy, yeah.
Or like it was so superficial to me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I really struggled with that because I did love Madame Lingel's, book, and I'm not one. The funny thing is, I'm not usually the one like Tolkien. I know those weren't going to be exactly the same.
Right.
They left out some major details and plot points. So, and I can usually.
Well, those movies were already long enough. If they hadn't, it would have been, we would still be watching them in the theater, yeah.
And even like, I've seen all the Jane Austens, which usually goes against my chick flick thing, but I love her as an author. And I can deal with them leaving stuff out, but for some reason kind of changing the goal of the story or the...
And what was the goal in the novel? Do you remember?
Well, it was much more... I know they tried to incorporate the light and the dark and the evil and the good and all of that, but this felt more like it was a fluff version of just ask the universe and it'll all be okay, and here's something shiny over here.
Does the original book have some like religious symbolism, or is it
somewhat,
more okay?
But all religions, though, it's not just like Christianity.
Oh, okay, so just more spiritual. Yeah.
And so I don't know, I felt like as a kid reading that we were kind of getting depth and all these views at an early age. and that was totally left out. It felt like a fluffy Disney movie.
Well, and it's similar to, excuse me, gosh, I have a little frog in my throat. And it's similar to my criticism in that, when, even on the lack of substance in the story is sort of similar with the visuals. Like when they get transported to the first place with the flowers that come up to the screen, I just thought, oh, looks like computer generated flowers that are flying. I just never felt transported. And you really want, with like a kid's adventure story, you really want to feel like you're in this world and it's magical and like anything could happen and there's that kind of tension, and I never felt that way. And I'm not sure about some of the casting choices in terms of Reese Witherspoon in particular. I remember, and maybe I'm remembering the Mrs. What's-It character wrong, but I thought she was a little bit like curmudgeonly.
Yeah.
And Reese, she's sort of playing her sarcastic, but she's just a little too Reese Witherspoon-y to play her that way. So, which is fine, they can change the character somewhat, but it was mainly for me the lack of, feeling transported. I think for a movie that's mostly about fantasy and adventure where you're traveling the universe, you should feel a sense of wonder and awe.
Yeah.
And I felt, more of that in a movie with earlier this, in 2017, there was a movie called Wonderstruck that Todd Haynes did, where a little girl goes on an adventure through the city and there's these parts where they're transported. In that movie, I felt much more wonder and awe than I did in this one, for instance. And this one had like 100 times the budget. So, so it's unfortunate. For me, it's probably a 2.5-star movie. I'm curious, what are you going to give it?
I'm going to give it a 1.
1 star. Wow, you really hate it.
I felt bad.
Did you like any? You didn't like the casting even?
I did like Storm Reed.
Yeah, as the girl Meg, the lead. So at least the lead character you liked. Okay, so we'll move on to our next movie. Quite a big shift. This one is called The Party, and we have a clip for you to take a look at. Okay, you saw a clip for The Party, in which a rising star in Britain's political scene hosts a party where everything soon all goes to heck. And this is sort of an all-star cast. Kristen Scott Thomas plays the rising politician. Her husband is Timothy Spall. Her best friend, Patricia Clarkson. Cherry Jones is one half of a lesbian couple, the other half played by Emily Mortimer, who discover soon on that they're, carrying not one child, not two, but as comes up many times, 3, a whole crowd, and Cillian Murphy, among others. So it's a big all-star cast of British and American actors. And this is a film by Sally Porter, who's an interesting director. Her last film, her very first film I ever recognized her from was Orlando in 1992, which was Tilda Swinton's big breakout role. Amazing performance, where Tilda Swinton just did this tour de force, very androgynous performance. Then she did Yes in 2004 with Joan Allen. And then her last film was Ginger and Rosa from 2012. She really hasn't made much between those 3 films. So she seems to take long breaks, sometimes a decade, in between movies. So it's interesting that this is the movie she comes back with. It's a very small little movie. I think you might have commented maybe only like 4 sets in the whole. The whole thing takes place in the one apartment or house throughout the whole movie. It almost seems like it could have been a play.
Yeah.
And it's to me, I enjoyed this movie. I'm going to give it 3 stars. It's a very smart, little crafty movie. It's about 70 minutes, which I felt was about the right length because none of these people are super pleasant or likable. In a way, Kristen Scott Thomas's character is the most likable, and she's not particularly likable. I love Patricia Clarkson. She's one of my favorite actresses, and she plays what Patricia Clarkson does so well. This just very sardonic, almost cruel, very
biting comments.
Very biting comments. Yeah, she's got a negative word for anyone and everyone, and she does a really good job here. Timothy Spall is kind of playing this very odd portrayal for him of this just kind of almost shell-shocked the whole movie.
I thought maybe he was having a medical issue. Like in
real life,
It
was very odd, But everyone, Cillian Murphy comes in as maybe the younger cast member, and he's kind of hyped up on cocaine in the movie, and so there's this very odd energy. The one thing you could say as a criticism movie is I'm not sure it seemed like as an acting exercise, and it was fun to watch for 70 minutes. I'm not sure if I believed any of these characters as characters. I'm not sure I thought any of these people actually would be friends, in that none of them seemed to actually like each other too much.
Yeah,
and that was the one part I thought, I'm not sure if that works for me, but it was interesting enough, and there was enough laughs and interest, and I had no idea where it was going, and it definitely had a surprise ending.
Absolutely, and I actually would give it 3 stars too, but that being said, it's one that I don't feel like I ever want to watch again.
Yeah.
Because it was so well done in the fact that it made you feel so awkward and uncomfortable,
Right.
like you were at the party the whole time.
Right, like you were at this terrible party and you couldn't escape. Like with
Yeah.
these people that are just, you kept thinking, why doesn't someone leave? As things got worse and worse, I think I would leave at this point. Yeah.
And they were all like fidgety. I mean, especially Cillian Murphy on cocaine.
Right, but they're
he
all
was, like,
fidgeting the whole
sweating,
movie.
and they're all moving around too much, and it just felt restless. And then there's these really intense drama situations going on that they keep introducing. It's like, can it get any worse?
Yeah, and it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can see where you're going a little bit with the character and the friendship development, but I'd kind of wondered if it wasn't really a true party for Kristen Scott Thomas in the way that it would be the one that she'd have with her family and friends. It was kind of the I'm showing off.
Oh, right, because she's just been elected to a high office in England, so she's wanting. Now, that's true. Maybe they're not really close friends, but it just seemed odd because they're not really close friends. Why do they all sort of stick around? And because at first they're like, oh, we should stick around and help them through this crisis, but why would you do that unless you were really close friends with the person? So there was just some oddities there, but I can definitely recommend it still.
Yeah,
and some great black and white photography. It's very sparse.
Yeah,
so.
And great acting, like you said.
Oh yeah, well yeah, all across the board. It's just one great actor after another.
Absolutely, so. Yeah. I just don't want to go to that party.
Yeah, no, we already went to it.
Yeah.
We saw it for 70 minutes. That was enough.
Yeah, it did feel longer than that, I have to say. So,
okay.
Yeah. So our next film is Red Sparrow, and we have a clip for this. Our next film is Red Sparrow, directed by Francis Lawrence. It's the story of Jennifer Lawrence, who plays Dominica, and she has been manipulated by her uncle into attending the Red Sparrow School, which is basically a Russian intelligence agency that allows their students and teaches them to basically use their bodies to manipulate others and get information on them and kill them. So it's a real laugh-a-minute movie. But
I would love to see that on the poster.
Yeah.
Red Sparrow, a laugh-a-minute movie. They take it out of context. We're like, what movie did she watch?
Yeah. But it has a stellar cast of people that are totally misused in a horrible, horrible way.
Oh, no.
And I never want to see it again. But I'm curious to see what you think.
So you really hated it? Is it like
really hated
0 stars, 1 star?
No, I'd probably give it 1 star also, just for the fact that, Charlotte Rampling and Jeremy Irons are in it, and I love them so much, and they do a good job, but I love Jennifer Lawrence. This was not the role for her in any way, shape, or form.
So you're going to find this really crazy, but I liked this movie.
Did you?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
And I was not expecting to like it because I know it got bad reviews. And it's very... it's definitely no more than a 3-star movie. Don't get me wrong. But what I liked about it is that there was parts of it that made me think of like it was a throwback to the old spy thrillers.
Yeah.
And I liked those I liked the part where she's at the spy training school and they're showing them, putting them through the exercises, if you will, to see how far they're willing to go and manipulate people. And they show her kind of figuring out, how to manipulate these men in different ways. And I liked those aspects, and I did like the casting. The film, I think, doesn't know quite what it wants to be, whether it wants to be more of a sophisticated spy thriller like A Most Wanted Man, because there's elements where it has these plot twists and these little things happening that are like a, John le Carre type spy thriller. And then there's parts that are really trashy where it becomes almost like Fatal Attraction or something. And so you're not sure where it wants to be. It's definitely a hard R, so I would just let people know that if you're planning to see it. It's extremely violent, and there's a ton of, I can't think of them. And I guess in a way I thought that was gutsy, because I'm not saying I'm giving it 3 stars because there was a lot of nudity in it, because that'd be ridiculous. But you don't see a lot of adult movies these days made for grown-ups that have this kind of sexual bravado in them. And I'm not sure how much I liked all of it, but I thought it was interesting.
Well, but it's almost like the real adult films that you talk about where they focus so much on the nudity that there's no story.
But it is part of her job. It's not like it's and she's kind of hitting back at being a victim in a way too. That was part of the,
Even the character names though. Her uncle is Uncle Vanya. Really, you couldn't get even more creative.
Oh no,
than
there's
that.
some
Or
I
Nate
know.
Nash as the spy,
and Joel Edgerton, who plays the American love interest of hers, and CIA. Is he CIA or FBI?
I think he's CIA.
Anyway, whatever he is, he's an American spy, and he is her counterpart. And that I was really liking that relationship, and I was like, oh, please don't let them get involved. And then they did, and I was really disappointed.
Yeah.
Because they don't have any chemistry. They didn't go well together.
None at all.
I'm almost talking myself into a 2.5-star rating as I'm talking about this movie. I liked the look of it, though, and I liked the music, and I liked the performances, and I found myself, I was strangely engaged. I wanted to know what was going to happen. I wanted to know what assignment they were going to send her on next, and it had that kind of globe-trotting, she's in Budapest here, and I like those kind of movies. So.
See, and I totally called the mole right from the beginning.
Oh, you knew what it was.
I turned to my friend, and I said, oh, he's the mole.
Oh, you're one of those people. You're not supposed to do that.
Because she did that. She does it to me, so it was kind of payback.
Oh, okay, I see.
But yeah, it was not. It was not pleasant for me at all.
Yeah, so you just hated everything about it, pretty much. Yeah,
which is weird. Maybe I've been in a bad mood lately because usually I'm like, oh, it's fine.
Yeah,
you know?
You're like, I hated everything in this week's show. This is Kara's grumpy Real Film Snobs episode. Well, I'm going to give it 3 stars. I still can recommend it, especially for people that like espionage thrillers with lots of nudity. I'd say that's the
And
genre.
I'm going to give it 1 star.
For people who like Jeremy Irons, and that's about
Charlotte Rampling.
Charlotte Rampling, who is very good in as well, although I feel like she could play that kind of hardened, dictator-like woman behind, kind of play that kind of role with her, hands tied behind her back.
Absolutely.
But I don't know. I was surprised you hated it I don't know. I guess I'm not surprised because it is pretty unlikable movie now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know why I liked it.
So everyone go out and see it.
Yeah.
No. Okay, so our next film is A Letter to 3 Wives. It's directed by Joseph Mankiewicz. I probably added a little accent to that. But he actually won Best Director and Best Screenplay for this film. And it's a film about 3 women who embark on a day's journey, and before they start, they get a letter from their supposedly close friend telling them that she's run away with one of their husbands. And the story is basically formed with flashbacks, and you're kind of till the end really don't know who the husband could be that this friend has run away with, really they kind of leave all loose ends until the very last
the last frame of the movie, pretty much. Yeah.
I really like this film. I'd actually seen it years ago when I was just a baby, I'm sure, But yeah, I've always really enjoyed it, and to me, it's actually a 4-star film. So I'm going from 1 to 4, and maybe it's a little bit of comparison going on.
Well, I don't know if you can compare this to Red Sparrow. Yeah. That's like talk about apples and oranges. But yeah, well, Kara's like, finally, we get to review a movie I picked because this was Kara's pick for the show. Yeah. And darn it, I'm going to review something that's actually good. And I did like this movie. I'm giving it 3.5 stars, but I really enjoyed it. In a way, it's 1949. It's an era where there were a lot of women's melodramas.
Yeah.
But this doesn't play like what they used to call the women's weepies at all. No. It's not like that at all. The women are very strong characters. There's 3 women, Deborah, Laura May, and Rita. And of course, they're all opposites. Laura May is like the vixen, the brunette
really quick
vixen with quick wit and sarcastic and sexy. And Deborah is sort of the farm girl, the innocent farm girl. And Rita is the tough-talking businesswoman. Mm-hmm. And we were having a lot of fun watching this, casting the remake, not knowing they made a remake in the 80s with horrible people. But I still feel like this is a film that could be remade and put in a modern context, because it does have good 3 strong female leads.
It is.
And very progressive. You mentioned this as well. Ann Southern, who plays Rita, and in the movie she's married to Kirk Douglas. And they have a very progressive relationship because she is a working woman in the movie, which is pretty unusual portrayal in 1949. And she's the breadwinner more. And he works, he's a school teacher, but more than once it's brought up that, she kind of makes more than him and, helps to support their household. And so.
Yeah, I love that because not only is that brought out, but it also pinpoints that she wants to be successful and she knows she's the one that's going to bring them success. Right. Like there's never any doubt in their mind, and there's never any doubt in his mind too, and he doesn't care. He loves her independence.
No, and he tells her that. He said, I never want to be anything than a school teacher. If you want all this stuff, you're going to have to go for it. And I was like, wow, especially for 49, and because it's Kirk Douglas, and I think he's such a great actor, it really works. You totally believe it.
Absolutely.
Because he just comes off as a really smart guy who could, has the confidence in himself to do that. But each woman in her flashback kind of flashes back to, appear as a scene with their husband that made them wonder, oh, is this maybe what did me in, where he ran off with this woman? So they each have doubts about their marriage, and so it's really kind of a neat reveal at the end. And although I was a little confused, the ending was almost a little too quick for me, which is why it went from 4 stars to 3.5, because it was so quick I made you rewind it because I actually wasn't sure what actually happened. Celeste Holm is the voice of the other woman, because you never see her, you just hear her in voiceover. She's kind of like cattily commenting on them in a voiceover. And she, of course, went on to do All About Eve and other films with Mankiewicz. So very interesting little twist there.
And I guess they kept it a secret so they could have a contest so that people could guess who Addie Ross
who it was. Yeah, and we couldn't figure it out from the voice. I mean, she had a neat voice, but I didn't know. And I don't think I would have guessed Celeste Holm because she's not a big enough star. I mean, she's a big star, but she wasn't big enough that I would have guessed, that. So the good pick, Kara. That was really,
I'm glad you
and
liked
very
it.
Different from Red Sparrow. You're right. So if you want something much more wholesome, there is no nudity or violence in Letter to Three Wives.
Right.
Just a lot of 1940s. There are people smoking. I guess that's probably like the most
lots
edgy.
of drinking.
Yeah, there is a lot of drinking in the film. That's true. But they're like small, these tiny little glasses. So. Anyway, okay, so we'll move on to my streaming pick. It's sort of a pick. I hadn't seen it, so I can't really say that before I watched. But this was a film I was really curious about. It's called The Bad Batch because it made a few critics' top 10 lists where they loved it. And then some other critics said it was one of the worst things I'd ever seen. And whenever I hear that about a movie, I think, well, that's interesting. And the other reason I was interested in it is because it was directed by Anna Lily Amirpour. I might be butchering her name, so I apologize. And she previously directed a great horror movie called A Girl Who Walks Home Alone at Night. And it was an Iranian vampire film that was just phenomenal and had a beautiful look and a just wonderful soundtrack. It was just fantastic. So I was really curious because this was her big follow-up. And I saw Keanu Reeves was supposed to be in it and Jim Carrey, although he's unrecognizable. So I was really curious. And in the film is about a young woman who drifts in between a community of cannibals to an aimless kind of desert utopia/dystopia known as The Dream, which is led by Keanu Reeves. And Suki Waterhouse stars as the girl whose name is Arlen. So yeah, it's about cannibals. So there is a...
By the way, it's about cannibals.
It's about cannibals. So The Bad Batch, so it's sort of like this futuristic dystopian society where anyone that's been put in prison or declared an other in any way is basically thrown out into the desert with
Texas,
this area.
which I think is funny.
Oh, did they say it was Texas? I didn't think they ever said that in the movie. It was just like a very wastelandy desert that has a giant chain link fence around it. And, some of the people have decided to be cannibals, and then some of them somehow have decided to go into this part called The Dream, where they don't have to be cannibals, but they have to be led by this guy who gives them kind of like psychedelic drugs, I guess.
Yeah.
Before I say what I thought, I want to hear what you think about this because I'm curious what I put you through with this one.
I liked it better than Red Sparrow.
Okay.
But not as much as A Letter to Three Wives.
What is that, 2.5, 3?
It's a 2. It's a 2 for me.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was kind of boring for me, honestly.
Yeah,
there was a lot of desert and a lot of dystopia, I guess.
Well, what was weird for me for a movie, you see the setup. Okay, a woman, she's in a cannibalistic society, and then there's this other half where they're on psychedelic drugs, and it's led by Keanu Reeves. You think this has got to be exciting. No. The beginning has a great setup.
Yeah.
When she's first dropped off, and then what happens to her, and they come chasing after her, and then you see what happens when they cut her leg off.
Yeah.
I'm not giving anything away because that happens in the first 5 minutes. And I thought, oh, this is a great setup to a movie. So I had so much promise. And then it's almost like she didn't know where it was going. It kind of wanders. And it's not very exciting. And I was surprised. No, I actually didn't like it either. And it just never feels, like I kept waiting, like, okay, now we're going to get going. And even when she gets to the next part, and then there's, what's his face, Giovanni Ribisi wandering around raving. I thought, oh, now something's going to happen with him. Nothing ever happens with anyone.
The most exciting thing was discovering that that's Jim Carrey.
Yeah,
because you never.
And then
it
kind of goes into a love story with her and Jason Momoa. Is that how you say it? He's from Game of Thrones and other stuff. And that was really disappointing. I'm like, oh, really? Now it's going into a love story?
Yeah.
Like after all that setup with the cannibals? I don't know. I was sort of excited about the premise more than where it went.
Yeah.
And I was surprised because some really pretty acclaimed, prestigious directors, had this on their top 10 lists, and I'm not sure. I mean, it had not a bad look to it, but anyway.
It was a nice try.
So,
I mean, I
gosh,
hate
did
to
we
say
get
that.
to show you anything you liked besides your own pick? Well, you liked the party, so you gave that 3
Yeah,
stars.
I liked the party.
So, and I feel bad, but it was just,
Well,
well, it's
no.
also that time of year. So,
Yeah, it is.
unfortunate about being guest host in March is this is when they throw the duds into the theaters. They're
Yeah.
like, hey, here you go. And so that's sort of what happens.
Yeah.
But, so to wrap up, we had, I got my cards all askew. So we had A Wrinkle in Time, which Kara hated. And this will be our theme for the show.
Yeah.
Which movies did Kara hate more?
That's right.
Which she hated quite a bit, but not as much as she hated Red Sparrow, which
That's
she
right.
really hated.
Yeah.
And she liked the party, but she doesn't want to ever attend it again. Okay, and Letter to Three Wives, I think we can say is our big pick from this week.
Yeah.
Safely. Okay, well, thank you very much, Kara, for joining us on the show. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for
And
having me.
as always, we'd like to thank our wonderful crew and our fantastic sponsors. I'd like to thank our, of course, Kara once again. Check us out on our website at realfilmsnobs.com. You can check us out on Facebook, on Twitter. We are also on Corvallis, Access Media, and Silverton Scan TV, and you can listen to us on KMUZ. Have a great day and great movies.